The headlights cut a pale tunnel through the freezing Chicago night. Archer Avenue stretched ahead, lonely, slick with winter fog. The kind of road that makes you grip the wheel a little tighter. Drivers around these parts know the stories. Strange figures by the roadside, whispers of a girl in a white dress, and a cemetery gate that rattles even when there's no wind. On January nights like this, the city feels older than it should, older than its brick buildings and steel bridges, as if something ancient watches from the shadows. Tonight, a delivery driver named Bill Novak swore he saw her. His dash cam flickered. A slim young woman in a pale, shimmering gown stood at the shoulder of Archer Avenue, her bare hands wrapped around herself as if she'd been left in the cold. Bill slowed, thinking she was in trouble. He rolled down his window and called out, but she didn't answer, just nodded slightly and gestured for a ride. He unlocked the passenger door. The dome light flickered when she stepped inside. She smelled faintly of gardenias and old perfume. Her skin looked too pale for a living girl. Bill felt a prickle along his arms. She spoke only once during the ride. Her voice was soft, almost drowned by the hum of the engine. Resurrection. Cemetery. Bill knew the place. Everyone in Chicago's southwest suburbs did. He figured she needed to meet someone at the gates. Maybe a friend after a late-night party. But as the Chevy approached the cemetery's iron entrance, the girl's seat was suddenly empty. The dome light flicked again. The passenger door was still locked. Bill slammed the brakes, his breath catching in his throat. The gravel crunched under his tires, and the road ahead was empty. It wasn't until later when his dash cam footage showed her fading like mist, halfway down the avenue, that he understood why locals whisper the name Resurrection Mary. Chicago in the 1920s and 30s was a city of jazz clubs, dance halls, and hidden speakeasies. On Archer Avenue, just beyond the city limits, Resurrection Cemetery stood quietly among cornfields and two-lane roads. It was a Catholic burial ground for the working-class families who had built Chicago's skyline. By day, it was serene. By night, the place felt impossibly cold, as if the stone angels on the graves watched you. The legend began with a tragedy. The stories say Mary was a young woman, pretty, with blonde hair and a love of dancing. One winter evening, after a quarrel with her boyfriend at the O. Henry Ballroom, she stormed out into the night and began walking along Archer Avenue. A car struck her as she walked, killing her instantly. Her grieving parents buried her in Resurrection Cemetery, the same road where she had died. But Mary, it seems, never left Archer Avenue. By the late 1930s, drivers began reporting a strange hitchhiker, a young woman in a pale party dress who would ask for a ride, sit quietly in the car, and then vanish near the cemetery gates. These sightings were so frequent that Chicago newspapers covered them, calling her the vanishing hitchhiker. Tavern owners told reporters about men stumbling in on winter nights, pale as ghosts themselves, swearing they had just driven a girl to Resurrection only to find their back seat empty. One of the earliest documented encounters came from Jerry Palace, a local musician. After dancing with a charming blonde girl at the O. Henry Ballroom, he offered her a ride home. She gave an address near the cemetery. When he pulled over, she vanished. Confused, Jerry knocked on the door of the house. An older woman answered and told him no young woman lived there. Jerry later learned Mary had died years earlier and that her photograph matched the girl he had danced with. By now, Archer Avenue was becoming a kind of supernatural stage. Each new winter, new witnesses emerged: taxi drivers, truckers, teenagers returning from dates. Some even claimed they saw her outside the locked gates, gripping the bars as if trying to get in. In 1976, cemetery workers found two of the massive iron bars wrenched apart, human. Handprints burned into the metal as if something impossibly strong had tried to push through. Local police dismissed it as vandalism, but the handprints stayed, scorched and smooth. To this day, visitors claim the bars are colder to the touch than the others, even on warm nights. For decades, Mary's legend has lived on the lips of Chicagoans. Tavern owners near Willow Springs keep her story alive for curious tourists. Paranormal investigators set up cameras along Archer Avenue, waiting for the white dress to appear in their lenses. And even now, some drivers avoid that road altogether after dark. But stories, especially those whispered between friends on stormy nights, have a way of twisting over time. Was Mary a single lost soul or something older wearing her face? Were the early witnesses telling the truth or repeating a good barroom yarn? To find the heart of the mystery, you have to dive deeper into police reports, ballroom records, and first-hand accounts from people who swear they've met Resurrection Mary. That's where the legend stops being a campfire story and starts feeling unsettlingly real. Chicago winters are merciless, wind tearing down alleyways, frost crawling across windows. But the stories of Archer Avenue have a different kind of chill, the kind that sinks into your bones even in summer. Over the decades, Resurrection Mary's legend didn't fade, it sharpened. In the 1940s and 50s, cab drivers swapped her name like a warning. One taxi dispatcher remembered fielding a trembling call from a driver who had picked up a polite blonde woman outside a tavern on Archer Avenue. She'd given him an address that didn't exist, then quietly vanished from the back seat as he drove past the cemetery. He swore he felt the air grow cold and damp like an open grave. Local dance halls whispered her name too. The O. Henry Ballroom, later renamed the Willowbrook Ballroom, became a magnet for thrill-seekers hoping to spot her. Couples would dance beneath twinkling lights, scanning the crowd for a pale figure in an old-fashioned dress. Musicians joked about keeping an empty chair on stage for Mary just in case. One of the most chilling testimonies came in 1973. A man named Ralph confirmed to Chicago newspapers that he had been driving down Archer Avenue when he saw a young woman walking alone. She was barefoot despite the snow. She waved for him to stop. He rolled down the window and she asked for a ride. Her voice was calm, almost distant. When he agreed, she climbed into the back seat. Ralph tried to make small talk, asking if she was all right, but she only gave short answers. As they approached Resurrection Cemetery, she suddenly shouted, "Stop!" Ralph slammed on the brakes. Before he could ask what was wrong, she disappeared, no door opening, no sound, just gone. Ralph stumbled out of the car, scanning the empty road. The only movement was the fog curling over the pavement. Stories like Ralph's weren't rare. In the 1980s, a police officer patrolling Archer Avenue reported seeing a woman dart in front of his car. He braked hard, convinced he'd hit her. But when he leapt out, there was no body, no footprints, just the eerie glow of the cemetery's gates in his headlights. Resurrection Mary wasn't always seen alone. Paranormal investigators claim that Archer Avenue is dotted with cold spots, pockets of freezing air even on warm nights. Some say you can hear faint swing music, like a ghost of the 1930s ballroom drifting on the wind. A handful of locals even believe they've seen Mary accompanied by shadowy figures, other restless souls wandering the road with her. One stormy night in the late 1990s, two friends, Denise and Carla, were driving home from a concert. Lightning slashed the sky, illuminating the wet asphalt. As they passed the cemetery, their car radio crackled with static. Then, just for a heartbeat, played a fragment of an old big band tune before cutting out. In their rearview mirror, they glimpsed a pale figure standing at the roadside. When they turned around, she was gone. The cemetery itself has become a pilgrimage site for the curious. By day, it's peaceful, stone angels standing guard over neat rows of graves. But at night, visitors report strange happenings. The smell of flowers when no blossoms are in sight, or whispers carried on the wind. Some claim they've seen the bars on the gate shift slightly, as if nudged by invisible hands. The infamous burned and bent bars from 1976 are still pointed out on tours. Skeptics argue they were damaged by a truck or welding accident, but locals whisper another explanation: Mary's desperate attempt to return to the world of the living. Even now, those bars feel colder than their neighbors, as though some part of her energy lingers there. What makes the story powerful is not just fear, it's longing. Mary wasn't an angry spirit or a vengeful monster. She was a girl who loved to dance, who had a fight on a winter night and never made it home. Her tragedy resonates with anyone who's ever stormed out into the dark, wishing for a second chance. Even paranormal researchers who doubt most ghost tales hesitate to dismiss Mary's story. Over the years, dozens of eyewitnesses, ordinary, sober people, have reported the same details: the white dress, the soft perfume, the sudden disappearance. Too many stories match too closely for easy dismissal. and yet no official records confirm Mary's identity. Some say her real name was Mary Bregovy, a young woman killed in a car crash in 1934. Others argue she was Anna Norkus, a dancer who died in a 1927 accident. The uncertainty keeps the legend alive. Without a definitive answer, every winter drive down Archer Avenue feels like a roll of the dice. By the early 2000s, television crews and ghost hunters descended on Willow Springs, hoping to catch her on film. They set up night vision cameras and EMF detectors near the gates. But Resurrection Mary seemed to elude them all. Still, the sightings continued. In 2019, a rideshare driver posted on a local forum about a passenger who vanished near the cemetery. He claimed her image didn't appear in the rearview camera feed, only the back seat itself. The post went viral, reigniting Chicago's fascination with Mary. As Chicago grew and modern life pressed in on Archer Avenue, Resurrection Cemetery remained eerily untouched. Even as traffic lights went up and subdivisions crept closer, the cemetery kept its quiet, otherworldly distance. Perhaps that's why Mary still wanders, why her story refuses to fade. In 2020, a group of paranormal vloggers set up a live stream on Archer Avenue during a snowy night. Their plan was to debunk Mary once and for all. Hours passed with nothing but wind hissing across microphones. Then, just before 3 a.m., one camera captured a flicker of movement. A pale, slender shape crossing the road about 50 yards behind their parked car. The shape glided more than walked, and when the team spun their headlights toward it, the road was empty. Viewers flooded the chat, convinced they had seen Mary. Skeptics called it a trick of the light. The debate raged on for weeks. Even locals who scoff at ghosts avoid certain stretches of Archer after dark. An Uber driver named Anthony, interviewed for a local podcast in 2021, confessed he refuses fares that take him past the cemetery at night. He told the host, "I don't believe in ghosts, but I do believe in that feeling. The one you get on Archer, like someone sitting in the back seat. Even when you're alone, older residents remember stories passed down from grandparents. One woman, Sylvia, recalled how her grandfather would warn her not to walk alone near Resurrection Cemetery. He wasn't a superstitious man, but he'd once seen a girl in a white dress step in front of his truck in the 1950s. He'd braked hard, heart pounding, convinced he'd killed her. When he got out to help, there was no one there. For the rest of his life, he avoided that road after sunset." The ballroom where Mary was last seen, renamed the Willowbrook Ballroom, burned down in 2016. Many in Chicago felt a strange pang of loss, as if Mary's story had been tied to those dance hall walls. But some claim her sightings increased afterward, as if she had been set adrift once more, looking for the music she loved. Folklorists have long studied the vanishing hitchhiker motif. It appears in cultures around the world. But Resurrection Mary stands out for the sheer consistency of her tale, reported by generations of unrelated people. Each account adds a brushstroke to the same haunting portrait: a lonely girl, a winter road, a ride that ends in an empty seat. In 2022, a team from a university folklore department conducted interviews along Archer Avenue. They expected a handful of anecdotes. Instead, they collected dozens of fresh accounts. A motorcyclist who swerved to avoid a figure in the road. A couple who saw a young woman waving in their headlights. A jogger who heard swing music near the gates. None of these people knew each other, yet their descriptions matched. One of the professors, speaking anonymously, admitted on a podcast, "I went in thinking this was just local color. But when you have sober adults, teachers, nurses, a police officer telling you the same story, you start to wonder if there's something we can't measure happening out there." Even paranormal debunkers struggle with Mary. While they dismiss photos and videos as tricks of light or pareidolia, they admit the sheer number of sightings is unusual. And then there's the evidence that can't be so easily explained. The burned bars on the gate, the unexplained cold spots, the recordings of distant music on still nights. It's easy to forget that behind the legend was a real tragedy. Whether she was Mary Bregovy, Anna Norkus, or someone else entirely, she was a young woman whose life ended abruptly. Maybe her spirit lingers, not out of malice, but out of longing for music, laughter, and the life she lost. Driving Archer Avenue today, You might see only headlights in your rear view and the shadow of trees bending under the wind. But locals will tell you, if you glimpse a young woman on a snowy night, standing barefoot by the road, you might hesitate before stopping. And if you do, remember, by the time you reach Resurrection Cemetery, the seat beside you might already be empty. The closer you look, the more the line between folklore and reality blurs. Each testimony is a thread, and together they weave something chilling. A pattern that suggests Mary is not just a story told to frighten children, but a presence that walks the boundary between worlds. Winter along Archer Avenue can feel timeless, snow settling softly on the trees, headlights carving through the darkness, and the cemetery gates looming like sentinels. Drivers passing through in the dead of night sometimes lower their music, as if instinctively showing respect. It's as though some part of Chicago knows the road belongs to her. In early 2023, a podcast producer named Jenna drove home after recording a late episode. The night was clear, the stars sharp above the city lights. As she neared Resurrection Cemetery, her car's Bluetooth glitched, the music cut out, replaced by a brief hiss of static. Then, faintly, she swore she heard the echo of a jazz trumpet, distant but distinct. Her eyes flicked to the roadside, and for just a heartbeat, she saw a young woman in a flowing dress illuminated by her headlights. Jenna slammed the brakes. When she looked again, the road was empty. The temperature inside her car dropped so suddenly her breath fogged the windshield. Jenna later described the moment not as terrifying, but profoundly sad, like witnessing someone still searching for a way home. Stories like Jenna's keep the legend alive. Paranormal enthusiasts organize Mary Walks, retracing the route. From the old Willowbrook ballroom to the cemetery, some bring flowers, leaving them at the gate in case the girl in white still wanders. Others come armed with cameras, hoping to catch even a flicker of her presence. Most leave with nothing but goosebumps and the unsettling sense that someone watched them from the trees. Skeptics argue it's mass suggestion, a story passed down so often that people see what they expect to see. Psychologists point out that Archer Avenue is poorly lit, with shifting fog and tricks of perspective that could create illusions. But those explanations fail to comfort the drivers who felt a hand brush their sleeve or smelled gardenia perfume in an empty car. The burned gate bars remain a physical reminder. Tour guides tap them gently with flashlights, and visitors swear the metal feels unnaturally cold. Even on hot July nights, the bars seem to hum faintly, as if holding on to something that refuses to fade. Beyond the ghostly encounters, Mary has become part of Chicago's identity. She's featured in books, documentaries, even murals. In a way, she's no longer just a lost soul. She's a guardian of local memory, a reminder that every city holds stories beneath its asphalt and concrete. Her presence invites drivers to slow down, to consider the lives that shape the roads they travel. But on certain nights, clear, quiet, and bitterly cold, Resurrection Mary is more than a story. Drivers still check their mirrors. Cab drivers still share warnings. And every winter, someone new steps forward with trembling hands and wide eyes, swearing they saw her. Perhaps she walks Archer Avenue, searching for the ballroom lights that burned away. Perhaps she's waiting for a ride that will finally take her home. Or maybe she lingers to remind us that some tragedies echo forever, carried on the wind and the whispers of a city that can't quite forget. So the next time you find yourself driving Archer Avenue after midnight, and you see a lonely figure on the roadside, think carefully before you stop. Even if your passenger seat stays empty, you might find your heart a little heavier, your breath a little shorter, and your world a little less certain. If you were behind that wheel, what would you do? Would you offer her a ride? Or would you keep driving and wonder forever what you might have seen? Do you believe Resurrection Mary is real, or is she just Chicago's favorite ghost story? Tell us your thoughts in the comments. If this story sent a chill down your spine, hit like, subscribe, and ring the bell so you don't miss the next journey into America's hidden legends. Share this with a friend who loves a good scare. You never know whose headlights she'll appear in next.